Colonel Jack Mason stood at the Pentagon's shattered window, watching humanity's last day unfold in streaks of purple fire across the Washington skyline. The crystalline ships of the Crocs hung like shards of broken glass in the blood-red sunset, their weapons turning the nation's capital into ash and memory. "Sir, the last transport leaves in 20 minutes, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from behind him, her voice steady despite the distant explosions. Dr. Wright says the cryogenic chambers can't wait any longer. Mason nodded, his weathered face reflecting in the cracked glass. At 45, he'd spent half his life preparing for alien contact, but nothing had prepared Earth for the Crocs, a species that viewed organic life as a disease to be purged from the galaxy. "Status of the other facilities?" he asked, finally turning away from the window. "Moscow and Beijing are gone. London went dark an hour ago. We're the last ones, sir." Rodriguez handed him a tablet displaying the final manifest of Operation Winter's Guard. 2,000 of our best soldiers and scientists, ready for cryo-sleep beneath the Antarctic ice. Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. Mason grabbed his rifle and combat pack. "Then let's not keep them waiting." The journey to Andrews Air Force Base was a gauntlet through hell. Their armored convoy weaved through streets littered with the crystalline remains of Croc's ground forces. The only good thing about the invaders was how satisfyingly they shattered under heavy artillery. The few civilians they passed were already dead, their bodies frozen in poses of terror as the aliens' atmosphere-altering weapons sucked the heat from entire city blocks. "Remember when we thought first contact would mean cultural exchange and technological advancement?" Rodriguez asked as they approached the base. Above them, the last of Earth's orbital defense platforms sparkled like dying stars as they fell from orbit. "We were naive," Mason replied, checking the radiation seals on his suit. "Turned out the galaxy's more like an immune system, and to them, we're the virus." Andrews was a fortress of desperate activity. The last hypersonic transport waited on the runway, its engines already spooling up. Teams of scientists rushed to load crucial equipment while Special Forces units maintained a defensive perimeter. They had exactly 17 minutes before the Crocs' main fleet finished positioning itself for a final bombardment. Dr. Emma Wright met them at the transport's cargo ramp, her lab coat covered in frost from the cryogenic equipment. "Colonel, we need to go. The chamber activation sequence takes 4 hours, and we're detecting massive energy buildups in the Crocs fleet." Mason helped the last of his team aboard, watching as medical staff prepared the soldiers for emergency cryo-prep injections. The nanomachine cocktail would protect their cells during freezing, theoretically keeping them viable for up to a century. Theoretically. No one had ever attempted suspended animation on this scale before. "What if we wake up and they're still here?" Rodriguez asked as they strapped in for takeoff. The transport's engines roared to life, drowning out the sound of distant combat. Mason checked his watch, the same one his father had worn in Afghanistan decades ago. "Then we finish the fight. The Crocs think they're sterilizing Earth, but all they're doing is putting the most dangerous predators humanity's ever produced on ice." The transport lifted off just as the first waves of the final bombardment began. Through the viewport, Mason watched Washington disappear in a sheet of crystalline fire. The Crocs' weapons didn't just destroy. They transformed, turning Earth's cities into alien geometries of crystal and shadow. As the transport pushed through the upper atmosphere, Mason felt the first effects of the cryo-prep drugs. His consciousness began to blur, but his resolve remained sharp. The Crocs thought this was humanity's end, but they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd left their prey wounded but alive, with nothing but time to evolve into something far more dangerous than before. The last thing Mason saw before the drugs took him was Earth burning below, its surface beginning to glitter with alien crystal. His last thought wasn't of defeat, but of promise. When he next opened his eyes, it would be to take back everything they'd lost. The facility's AI designation guardian logged another routine systems check. Power consumption. Optimal. Geothermal tap. functioning at 99.8% efficiency. Cryogenic pod integrity, unchanged. External temperature, -43 degrees Celsius. Time since initialization, 36,524 days, 7 hours, 13 minutes. A century of silence, broken only by the hum of machinery. Deep beneath 3 kilometers of Antarctic ice, 2,000 bodies slept in their crystalline chambers, but they weren't merely frozen. They were evolving. In Pod Alpha 001, Colonel Mason's body underwent its 876,582nd cellular reconstruction. The military-grade nanomachines, originally designed simply to prevent tissue degradation, had long since exceeded their programming. Gardian observed the changes with cold curiosity. The machines had begun communicating with each other across pods, sharing data, optimizing their improvements. They wove lattices of carbon nanotubes through muscle tissue, reinforced bone with titanium alloys, and restructured neural pathways with quantum-sensitive materials. Each subject was developing differently, their genetic code steering the enhancement process in unique directions. Above, the Croc civilization flourished on Earth's surface. Their crystalline cities rose like frozen fractals, transforming the planet's ecosystem to match their silicon-based biology. They constructed massive atmospheric processors, slowly altering Earth's chemistry to better suit their needs. Humans were nothing but a footnote in their historical archives, a primitive organic species, efficiently cleansed to make way for superior life. In Pod Beta 117, Lieutenant Rodriguez's body temperature dropped to -15 degrees Celsius, then rose to 48 degrees Celsius within microseconds. The nanomachines had granted her cells perfect thermal control, a capability that would prove lethal against crystalline opponents. Similar mutations spread through the sleeping army. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, neural interfaces that could hack alien technology. Alert! External seismic activity detected, Gardian announced to the empty facility. Source: Croc's mining operations. Current distance: 4.7 kilometers. Structural integrity: uncompromised. The aliens were getting closer. Their resource extraction had become more aggressive over the decades, driving deeper into Earth's crust. They never suspected that their most precious mining site in Antarctica sat less than 5 kilometers from humanity's sleeping army. Their crystalline sensors, designed to detect mineral deposits, were blind to the biological signatures masked by layers of specialized shielding. In the facility's central processor core, Gardian ran another simulation of the awakening sequence. The AI had spent a century perfecting the revival process, knowing that success would require split-second timing. The pods couldn't all be activated at once. The power surge would be detected. They would need to wake in carefully calculated waves, each group of soldiers immediately ready for combat. Pod Gamma 259 contained Dr. Emma Wright, her brain now interfaced with an organic quantum computer grown by the nanomachines. In her frozen dreams, equations and alien technical specifications danced behind her eyes. The machines had accessed fragments of Croc's data from surface scans, feeding the information into the sleeping scientists' enhanced minds. When they awoke, they would understand their enemy on a fundamental level. Gardian's sensors registered another tremor. A Croc's mining beam cut through the ice 2 kilometers above, its crystalline energy signature bright against the facility sensors. In response, the AI activated additional camouflage systems, sending false geological data to any nearby alien sensors. To the Crocs, this section of Antarctica appeared to be nothing but solid ice and worthless rock. Warning: Pod Alpha 001 showing anomalous activity, Gardian noted. Colonel Mason's neural patterns had begun to spike, his enhanced brain activity suggesting the first stages of consciousness. The nanomachines in his pod worked overtime, completing their final modifications. His body was ready, transformed into something that blurred the line between human and machine. The AI accessed its primary directive, unchanged after 100 years. Preserve, enhance, awaken, reclaim. Soon, the facility's long silence would end. The Crocs would learn that their victory had been incomplete. Humanity hadn't died. It had pupated, transforming within its icy cocoon into something new. Something that remembered every moment of its defeat and had spent a century preparing for revenge. In the darkness, 2,000 warriors continued their metamorphosis, waiting for the day when they would rise from their frozen tomb to reclaim their world. They would emerge not just as soldiers, but as living weapons, perfectly evolved to shatter their crystalline oppressors. The silence wouldn't last much longer. The first sign of malfunction was a hairline crack in Pod Alpha 001's crystalline surface. Guardian sensors detected the stress fracture microseconds before Colonel Mason's enhanced muscles shattered the reinforced chamber. He erupted from the cryogenic fluid like a creature born of ice and rage, his skin steaming as his body temperature rocketed from near freezing to fever hot in seconds. Neural interface online, Guardian announced. "Welcome back, Colonel Mason. You have been in suspended animation for 100 years, 2 months, 14 days. Mason fell to his knees, coughing up the last of the cryofluid. His vision swam with data, system readouts, facility status, body metrics, all streaming directly into his consciousness through the neural interface the nanomachines had built. Every cell in his body hummed with energy, and he could feel the machines in his bloodstream, waiting for commands. Status. He managed to rasp, his enhanced vocal cords adapting to speech after a century of disuse. Your pod experienced an unexpected power surge, triggering early revival. However, cellular reconstruction is complete. You are operating at 427% of baseline human capacity." Mason stood, watching in fascination as his skin shifted color to match the metallic walls. Another unexpected adaptation. The others. Lieutenant Rodriguez and Dr. Wright's pods are primed for revival. Shall I begin the sequence? Do it. Rodriguez's awakening was more controlled than his own. She emerged from her pod already alert, her eyes glowing faintly with the neural interface's activation. Dr. Wright followed minutes later, immediately connecting with Guardian systems through her enhanced brain. "This is..." Wright held up her hand, watching as nanomachines created patterns beneath her skin. "We never imagined the enhancement process would go this far. We're not just improved humans anymore. We're something entirely new." Rodriguez tested her newfound abilities, her body temperature dropping until frost formed on nearby surfaces. "How many different enhancements are we looking at?" "Unique to each subject," Guardian replied. The nanomachines adapted to individual genetic codes. Colonel Mason shows unprecedented strength and tactical processing capabilities. Lieutenant Rodriguez developed thermal manipulation abilities. Dr. Wright's brain has evolved to interface directly with both human and alien technology. Mason accessed the facility's external sensors through his neural link. The data made him pause. "The Crocs, they're right above us." Wright connected to the same feed. "A mining operation. They've been getting closer for decades. We need to wake the others, but we can't risk a power surge that would alert them." "Show me the revival schedule," Mason commanded. His enhanced mind processed Guardian's complex awakening sequence in seconds. "We'll start with Delta Squad. They were our best infiltration team. If the Crocs detect anything, we'll need their stealth capabilities." The revival process began, carefully calculated to avoid detection. Each awakened soldier displayed new abilities. Some could interface with Crocs technology, others had developed organic weapons, and a few showed signs of limited matter manipulation. "Sir," Rodriguez called from her monitoring station, "you need to see this." The display showed scattered human settlements across Earth's colder regions, small tribes of survivors, descendants of those who had fled to the most inhospitable areas during the invasion. They lived in the shadows of the Crocs' crystalline cities, passing down stories of Earth's fall through generations. "They talk about us," Wright said, scanning the intercepted communications. We're part of their mythology now. The frozen warriors, sleeping beneath the ice, waiting to return and reclaim the world. Mason felt the weight of those legends, those hopes carried through a century of oppression. Then let's not keep them waiting. Uardian, begin revival sequence for all combat-ready personnel. Rodriguez, I want reconnaissance teams ready in 6 hours. Right, start analyzing everything we have on current Crocs defenses. He walked to the facility's main viewport, looking up through kilometers of ice at the crystalline structures above. His enhanced vision could make out the alien ships moving through the transformed atmosphere, their crews never suspecting that humanity's revenge was awakening beneath their feet. They thought they killed us, Mason said, watching his reflection in the thick glass. His eyes glowed with neural activity, his skin rippling with nanomachine enhancements. Instead, they forced us to evolve. Time to show them what a century of transformation can do. The Crocs patrol never saw death coming. One moment they were conducting their routine survey of the ice fields. The next, their crystalline bodies were shattering from sudden thermal shock. Lieutenant Rodriguez emerged from the blizzard, her enhanced body radiating waves of alternating heat and cold that turned the aliens into glittering shards. Clear, she subvocalized through the neural network. 5 hostiles eliminated. No signal sent. Colonel Mason's voice replied in her mind. Confirmed. The settlement's 2 kilometers north. Dr. Wright's scans show 37 human life signs. Rodriguez moved through the Antarctic night like a ghost, her skin automatically matching the ice and snow. A century of evolution had turned her into the perfect predator for this frozen world. Behind her, Delta Squad followed in perfect silence, their enhanced bodies leaving no traces in the snow. The human settlement appeared gradually, holes dug into the ice, covered with scavenged materials and animal hides. Heat signatures showed people huddled underground, hidden from Croc sensors, a crude but effective survival strategy. Movement at the perimeter, Delta 2 reported. 2 guards. They're armed with Croc's weapons. Mason's surprise rippled through the neural link. These survivors have been busy. Rodriguez, make contact. Carefully. She stepped into view, hands raised. The guards reacted instantly, salvaged crystal weapons humming to life. They wore thick furs and had ritual scars across their faces. 100 years of adaptation had changed more than just the frozen warriors. We come from beneath the ice, Rodriguez said in their language, the words downloaded directly to her mind by Guardian. We are the ones your stories speak of. The guard's eyes widened. The younger one dropped to his knees. The winter wraiths, he whispered. The legends were true. Within an hour, they sat in the settlement's main chamber, surrounded by descendants of the original survivors. The tribe's leader, a woman named Sarah Frost, had tears in her eyes as Rodriguez demonstrated her abilities. For generations, we've told our children about the warriors sleeping in the deep ice, Frost said. When the Crocs hunt us, we pray to you for protection. And now you're here. We need to know everything, Rodriguez replied. How you've survived, what you know about the Crocs, their weaknesses. The stories poured out. A century of guerrilla warfare had taught the survivors much. The Crocs weren't just vulnerable to temperature changes. Their crystalline biology made them rigid, inflexible. They couldn't adapt quickly to new threats. Their hierarchy was absolute. Lower castes couldn't function without direct orders from above. They're expanding their mining operations, Frost explained, pointing to a crude map. Something about their homeworld needing more resources. They're getting desperate, taking bigger risks. Rodriguez shared the intelligence through the neural net. Mason's response was immediate. Perfect timing. Wright's team just cracked their communication protocols. We can monitor their entire network. A child approached Rodriguez, touching her arm in wonder as her skin shifted colors. Will you teach us to fight like you? He asked. Better, she replied. We'll teach you to win. Over the next weeks, more teams made contact with other settlements. Each tribe had developed different survival strategies, different ways to fight the Crocs. The frozen warriors began sharing technology, training survivors to use their salvaged weapons more effectively. But their greatest weapon was fear. The Crocs couldn't comprehend what was happening. Patrols vanished without a trace. Critical systems failed mysteriously. Crystalline structures shattered in impossible ways. Security footage showed only glimpses. Human figures moving faster than their sensors could track, skin changing color like chameleons, bodies tolerating temperature extremes that should have been fatal. "They're calling us demons," Wright reported, monitoring Croc's communications. "Their religious caste is in chaos. They thought they cleansed all organic life from this region, but now they're seeing ghosts." Mason's satisfaction was evident through the neural link. "Good. Let them fear the dark. Let them dread the ice and snow. They spent a century thinking they were the apex species on this planet." Rodriguez watched as more survivors arrived at their hidden base, ready to join the resistance. Time they learned they were wrong. The Croc's High Priest Kittel stood before the Crystalline Council, his faceted body dimmed with distress. The holographic recordings played behind him, showing shadows that moved too fast for their sensors, human figures that appeared and vanished like spirits, and entire patrols reduced to shards by impossible temperature shifts. "The abomination has returned," he declared, his crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. "The organic plague we thought cleansed rises again, twisted by unholy forces." In the ventilation shaft above, Mason watched through adaptive camouflage as the council erupted into chaos. Dr. Wright's voice whispered through his neural link. "Their religious caste is fracturing. 3 subsects have already declared this a divine punishment." "Good," Mason subvocalized. "Rodriguez, status on the broadcast." "Ready, sir. We've hijacked their emergency frequency. Every Crocs on Earth will see this." Mason allowed himself a grim smile. "Execute." The council chamber's holographic system suddenly overrode, projecting a massive image of human warriors rising from the ice. The figure at their lead was Rodriguez, her body shifting between solid and mist, temperatures swirling around her like a storm. The Crocs recoiled as their worst fears materialized before them. "You thought us extinct," Rodriguez's voice boomed, distorted to inhuman frequencies. "You thought organic life was weak, easily erased. But we did not die. We evolved." The display showed enhanced humans phasing through crystalline walls, shattering Crocs with a touch, disappearing into shadows. Each image had been carefully staged and edited by Wright's team, making their abilities seem even more supernatural than they already were. "Your gods are silent," Rodriguez continued as several council members flooded the chamber. "Ours have risen from the ice itself." Mason watched Kittel's crystalline form vibrate with terror. The High Priest's next words would reshape Croc's society forever. "The demons walk among us." The great cleansing was incomplete. Through the neural network, Mason felt the satisfaction of his scattered forces. Across the globe, similar scenes played out in every Croc settlement. A century of absolute certainty in their superiority cracked like their crystalline bodies. "Sir," Wright's voice cut in. "Beta team reports the mining facility is secure. 300 more warriors are awakening. The Croc's military command is mobilizing," Rodriguez added. "But their religious caste is actively interfering, claiming weapon platforms are tainted by demonic influence." Mason dropped from the ventilation shaft as the last council members fled. He approached Kittel, allowing his camouflage to fade slowly, revealing his transformed body. The High Priest's crystalline surface cracked with terror. "Your kind sought to purify Earth of organic life," Mason said, his voice modulated to frequencies that made the Croc's crystalline form resonate. "Instead, you forced us to become something new. Neither fully organic nor synthetic, beyond your comprehension. What do you want?" Hull's voice quavered. Mason's skin rippled with nanomachines. "First, we want you to run. Run to every temple, every sanctuary. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them about the demons that rise from the ice, wearing the faces of those you thought destroyed. Let your fear spread like a plague through your perfect crystalline society." The high priest fled, leaving a trail of crystalline shards in his wake. Through the neural net, Mason felt Rodriguez's fierce approval and Wright's calculated satisfaction. The Crocs' greatest weakness wasn't their crystalline bodies or rigid hierarchy. It was their unshakable faith in their own supremacy. Next phase. Rodriguez asked through the link. Mason accessed the facility's systems through his neural interface, watching as more cryogenic pods activated deep beneath the ice. Each new warrior would emerge stronger than the last, their bodies and abilities refined by the nanomechin's ongoing evolution. "Now we show them the difference between their gods and ours," he replied. "Their gods demanded our extinction. Ours demanded we adapt. Let's show them which faith was stronger." Around the world, the winter wraiths emerged from shadow and storm, bringing with them a terror that would shatter not just Crocs' bodies, but the very foundations of their beliefs. Dr. Wright stood before the holographic display in the command center, her enhanced mind processing streams of data as she manipulated the crystalline structure floating before her. Behind her, Mason and Rodriguez watched as she interfaced directly with salvaged Crocs technology, her nanomechans glowing beneath her skin. "I've isolated the frequency," she announced, her voice tight with excitement. "Their crystalline structure isn't just their biology, it's their weakness. Watch." She sent a command through her neural interface. The captured Crocs crystal began to vibrate, then shattered from within as Wright's reprogrammed nanomechans replicated through its lattice. "The ice plague," she said, her eyes glowing with data streams. "Our nanomechans can infiltrate their crystalline matrix and propagate exponentially. One infected crystal can shatter an entire colony within minutes." Mason approached the shattered remains. "Any way they can defend against it." "That's the beautiful part," Wright smiled. "They'd have to fundamentally change their molecular structure. They're too rigid, too perfect in their crystalline form. They can't adapt fast enough." Rodriguez picked up a crystal shard, her thermal abilities sensing its structure. "How soon can we weaponize this?" An alarm blared through the facility. Guardian's voice echoed through their neural links. Multiple Crocs capital ships detected entering atmosphere. They're deploying thermal terraforming arrays. The tactical display shifted, showing massive crystalline structures descending from orbit. The temperature around them began to rise dramatically. "They're trying to melt the ice caps," Wright realized. "They'd rather destroy their mining operations than risk losing them to us." Mason's enhanced mind calculated possibilities at superhuman speed. "Rodriguez, get to the surface. Take Delta Squad and coordinate with the survivor settlements. Get them to the underground shelters." "Right, how fast can you deploy the ice plague?" "I've already uploaded the nanomachine code to our awakened forces," she replied, her fingers dancing through holographic data. "But we need to get close to their primary crystalline nodes for maximum effect." The facility shuddered as another thermal wave hit. Ice began melting above them, tons of water threatening to flood their position. Mason felt the other warriors through the neural net, 500 now awake, each enhanced beyond human limits, all waiting for his command. "They think they can flush us out," he said, his skin rippling with tactical calculations. "Time to show them what happens when you corner a predator." Rodriguez's team moved like ghosts through the melting ice fields, their enhanced bodies adapting to the rapidly changing conditions. Through their shared neural link, Mason watched as they gathered survivors and deployed ice plague canisters near Croc structures. The effect was devastating. Crystalline buildings began to shatter, the plague spreading through their connected networks. Croc soldiers crumbled mid-step, their bodies betraying them from within. Their perfect, ordered world began to break apart at a molecular level. "They're responding," Wright reported, monitoring their communications. Multiple ships launching from the orbital platforms. "Mason, they're preparing to glass the entire continent." Mason connected to the facility's external cameras, watching as massive crystalline weapons platforms aligned above Antarctica. The Crocs were willing to sacrifice one of their largest mining operations to stop the ice plague from spreading. "Not this time," he growled. "Right. Upload the plague's code to every communications array we control. Rodriguez, target their command ships with the thermal pulses. Let's show them what real adaptation looks like." The battle unfolded across multiple dimensions: physical, digital, and molecular. Enhanced warriors moved through the chaos like living weapons, their bodies pushing the limits of their transformation. The ice plague spread through Croc's networks, while Rodriguez's team created devastating temperature differentials that shattered their largest structures. Through it all, Mason coordinated their forces with post-human precision, his tactically enhanced mind processing thousands of variables per second. The Crocs' rigid hierarchy crumbled in the face of their adaptability, their perfect formations breaking as terror spread through their ranks. "Sir," Wright called out, her voice urgent, "I'm detecting a massive energy buildup in their orbital network. This isn't just about Antarctica anymore. They're positioning for a full global assault." Mason watched the crystalline ships realigning above Earth, their weapons charging. "Then we're done playing defense. Upload the ice plague to every communication satellite in range. We're taking this fight to orbit." The war for Earth was about to enter its final phase. The Croc's orbital platform, Crystal Ascendant, shimmered against Earth's atmosphere, its weapons primed to sterilize the planet below. Inside, Mason's enhanced vision tracked crystalline crews rushing to battle stations, their bodies refracting emergency lights like living prisms. "Stealth systems holding," he subvocalized through the neural net. His transformed body had adapted to the vacuum of space, nanomachines creating an invisible barrier around his skin. "Rodriguez, status." "Teams in position," her thoughts echoed back. "Wright's virus is uploaded to their navigation core. On your mark." They had infiltrated the platform using captured Croc shuttles, their enhanced bodies perfectly mimicking crystalline signatures. Now 20 of Earth's deadliest warriors waited in the shadows of the massive station, ready to unleash hell. "Remember," Wright's voice joined the neural link, "the ice plague's effectiveness is amplified in zero gravity. Once it starts, we have 3 minutes before total structural failure." Mason gave the signal. Rodriguez moved first, her thermal abilities devastating in the confined space. Croc's soldiers shattered as she alternated between extreme heat and cold, their crystalline forms unable to handle the stress. Delta Squad emerged from their hiding spots, each enhanced warrior becoming a hurricane of destruction. "Alert," Guardian reported through their link. Croc's fleet adjusting position. They're preparing to fire on population centers. Mason burst into the command center, his nanomachines interfacing with Croc's tech. The alien controllers never stood a chance. Their rigid programming couldn't match his hybrid consciousness as he seized control of their weapons. "Right. Now." The ice plague activated throughout the station. Crystalline walls began to fracture as nanomachines reproduced exponentially, turning the Crocs' perfect structure against them. Through the viewport, Mason watched as the infection spread to connected ships, creating a cascade of destruction through the alien fleet. "Sir," Rodriguez's warning came with a tactical overlay. "Their flagship is charging something massive. Energy readings are off the scale." The massive Croc's vessel World Cleanser emerged from behind Earth's moon, its crystalline surface reconfiguring into what looked like a massive focusing lens. Mason's enhanced mind calculated its purpose instantly: a planet-killing weapon designed to reshape Earth's entire molecular structure. "They're trying to turn the whole planet into crystal," Wright realized, her consciousness linked to their sensors. "They'll kill everything, even their own forces." Mason made his decision. "All teams, converge on my position. Rodriguez, prep for a space jump. Right, give me control of every nanomachine you can spare." The plan was insane, but they were long past normal human limitations. As his team assembled, Mason's body began to change. Nanomachines formed layers of living armor around him, adapting to the vacuum of space. Rodriguez's thermal field expanded to encompass them all, ready to create the most extreme temperature differential they'd ever attempted. The math is impossible, Wright warned. Even with our enhancements, we stopped being bound by impossible a century ago. Mason cut her off. Execute. They launched themselves into space, enhanced bodies accelerating toward the world cleanser. Croc's point defense systems tracked them, but Rodriguez's thermal field deflected the attacks, turning enemy fire into streams of fractured crystal. Mason felt his consciousness expanding, connecting with every nanomachine in their bodies. They'd moved as one entity, a swarm of hybrid warriors evolved far beyond their original human limits. The Crocs had created their own destruction, a species engineered by necessity to be their perfect predator. Impact in 10 seconds, Wright calculated. The ice plague is ready. The world cleanser's weapon began to fire, its crystal lens focusing enough energy to reshape a planet. But it was too late. Mason's team struck the hull like a hybrid meteor, their combined abilities creating a breach. The ice plague poured through their bodies into the ship's crystalline superstructure. For Earth, Mason thought through the neural net as the massive vessel began to splinter from within. For everyone they took from us. The world cleanser's destruction lit up Earth's orbit like a new sun, its crystalline fragments creating a glittering funeral pyre for Croc's supremacy. Below, the remaining surface forces fell into chaos as their command structure disintegrated. But Mason knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of humanity's return. And they were bringing 100 years of evolution with them. The Dubai space elevator stood like a crystalline thread, connecting Earth to the stars, the last bastion of Croc's control on the planet. At its base, the scattered remains of alien forces prepared for their final stand. In orbit, their supreme commander Tlax watched humanity's approach through fractured sensors. Impossible. Tlax's crystalline form vibrated with rage. We cleansed this world. We purified it. Mason's voice echoed through every Croc's communication channel, his enhanced consciousness easily breaching their encryptions. You taught us the price of weakness. Now let us teach you the power of adaptation. The assault began on multiple fronts. Rodriguez led the ground forces, a mixture of enhanced warriors and survivor tribes, their combined knowledge of Earth's transformed environment making them unstoppable. The ice plague spread through the elevator's lower sections while thermal attacks shattered Croc's defensive positions. They're activating something in the orbital station, Wright reported through the neural net. Her enhanced mind interfaced with captured Croc's databases. Sir, it's a planetary cracker. They're going to try to split Earth's crust. Mason's tactical systems analyzed the situation. The Crocs would rather destroy the planet than admit defeat. Their crystalline psychology couldn't handle the shock of being outmatched by what they considered a lesser species. All forces converge on the elevator, he commanded. We end this now. The battle for the space elevator became a vertical war unlike anything in human history. Enhanced warriors ran up crystalline walls, their bodies adapted to ignore gravity. Rodriguez's thermal teams created paths through Croc's defenses, while survivor tribes proved that a century of guerrilla warfare had made them just as deadly as their evolved allies. Mason led the assault on the orbital station, his hybrid consciousness interfacing with the elevator systems. Each level they took became a lesson in how far humanity had evolved. Croc's weapons were turned against their owners, crystalline barriers shattered under precise thermal strikes. The ice plague spread through ventilation systems, transmitted by nanomachines that had once been meant to simply preserve human life. Mason. Wright's warning came as they reached the command level. Tlax is initiating the planetary cracker. The Supreme Commander stood before a massive crystalline control interface, its faceted body glowing with power. Your species is a disease. Tlax's harmonics resonated with hatred. If we cannot cleanse you, we will cleanse the planet itself. Mason stepped forward, his transformed body reflecting the emergency lights. You had a century to understand your mistake. You thought destroying our civilization would end us. Instead, you forced us to evolve beyond it." His nanomachines interfaced with the Croc's systems. Tulax fought back, crystalline technology resisting his hybrid consciousness. But the Supreme Commander had never faced anything like what humanity had become, a perfect fusion of organic adaptability and technological power. "Right. Rodriguez. Now." The combined attack hit from all directions. Wright's consciousness joined Mason's, their enhanced minds overwhelming Croc's systems. Rodriguez's thermal assault struck from below, her powers amplified by the station's energy networks. Tulax's crystalline form began to crack as the ice plague invaded its perfect lattice. "You are abominations." Tulax's dying harmonics vibrated through the station. "We are survival," Mason corrected. "We are adaptation. We are humanity evolved." The Supreme Commander's crystalline form shattered, its fragments broadcasting a final warning to the Croc's homeworld. Earth was no longer a target for conquest. It had become a graveyard for invaders, protected by warriors who had transformed defeat into the ultimate weapon. As the sun rose over a liberated Earth, Mason stood with Rodriguez and Wright at the elevator's base, watching survivor tribes emerge from hiding. The planet's surface glittered with the remains of Croc's civilization, already being reclaimed by evolved humanity. "What now?" Rodriguez asked, her thermal powers gently melting a crystalline structure into raw materials. Mason watched as more cryogenic pods were discovered worldwide, each containing warriors ready to help rebuild. Earth would never be the same, but neither would humanity. They had become something new, not quite human, not quite machine, but perfectly evolved to protect their world. "Now," he said, feeling the strength of his transformed species through the neural net, "we show the galaxy what adaptation really means." Above them, the first new human ships rose into orbit, their hybrid technology a warning to any who would threaten Earth again. Humanity had not just survived. They had transformed their near extinction into transcendence. The winter was over. The dawn of evolved humanity had begun.